Last year, my husband and I spent about $60,000 on childcare. That's an insane number. And people often ask us how and why. Well, the how is the average cost of childcare for one kid in full-time daycare in our state here in Massachusetts is about $20,000. And so $60K for 4 kids isn't that bad, which is crazy to say. So that's how we spend that much, because it costs about $20,000 per kid to go to full-time care. Now, we have 4 kids. We have one in public school, so they just need after-school care. And we have one who's still at home. She's about 15 months old. She cannot get into daycare. There are no available spots for her until she's 2. And so we have in-home part-time help for her. And that's why we're not paying $80,000 a year. And the question people often have for us is, aren't there less costly options like in-home daycares or nannies? Well, nannies are more expensive, and in-home daycares have very limited availability, right? And their hours typically are not conducive to a working parent schedule. They close earlier, they have half-day Fridays, whatever it might be. And the spots are hard to come by, just like a center-based daycare. So that's how we spend this much money. The why? The why is because we both value working, and we see a future earning potential for us and our family that goes past the next 5 years. It is important for both of us to keep working, and for me to keep working, because the question is always, why don't I stay at home? For me to keep working because my earning potential will help support the future we hope to have for our family. We hope to be able to support our kids when going to college or buying their first home or whatever it might be. And we are privileged enough to earn enough money for it to make sense for us to both work. And I know that is incredibly privileged. And what fires me up about this childcare crisis is that we struggle and we are privileged. The average American cannot afford childcare. They cannot find childcare. And the fact that people are determining what their families look like based on these issues, the fact that childcare is inaccessible and unaffordable, is sad and devastating, because this did not plague previous generations. Nobody was saying, I'm only having 1 kid because I can't afford more daycare. I'm only having 1 kid because we can't get off a wait list for the first one, so I can't afford to have 2 kids at home with me while I work full time. Nobody was saying that before. This is a problem. This is a very real problem that's come about in the last 5 to 10 years, and something we need to talk about and talk about often, because it is hurting women. Women in particular are leaving the workforce in mass amounts. They are limiting their childbearing options, right? They're saying, I can only have one. I can only have one. If we have a third accidentally, it will devastate us financially. That is such a hard place to be. And we need to be doing more for families, because there is no world in which we should all be scared of our future because of the cost of childcare. One of the number 1 reasons that people are not having kids anymore is due to the cost of childcare. It is not feasible for most people to have one parent leave the workforce when they become parents, and so they rely on childcare. And in 2023, the cost for one infant to go to daycare in the United States was $13,000. That is the average. That is not the norm. I know where I live, which is a high cost of living area here in Massachusetts, it's over $20,000 a year for one child. That's not even an infant. An infant's more like $28,000 a year. The cost of childcare rivals the cost of in-state college tuition here in Massachusetts. Families cannot afford to put their kids into daycare. And before you come at me and tell me they should get a nanny, that is an even more expensive option for childcare. And rightfully so. Childcare workers need to be paid a livable wage. They need a living wage, and they're not getting one. And that's the thing. Families cannot afford childcare. Childcare workers cannot afford to continue in that field, and therefore childcare centers are closing. They have not come back up to where they were pre-pandemic, like everything else. Travel, concerts, entertainment, events, that's all above pre-pandemic levels, but childcare is still below it. Childcare continues to be something that families struggle with, and so many people are choosing not to have kids because they cannot afford it. They cannot afford the cost. And so if you are thinking about having kids, it is incredibly important to think about what you will do for childcare and how you're going to pay for it. But if you don't, it is really important that you are involved in this conversation, because it impacts all of us. The lack of childcare is leading to drastic changes in the way that people view family planning and what our economy and country will look like in 10, 20, 30 years from now, when a lot of millennials choose not to have children because they can't afford them.
Childcare matches rent or mortgage payment. Like it's almost the same.
Yeah.
And so how do people afford that? And is that only affordable if you're wealthy? And then somebody who's middle income, or low income, what
Middle
do
class
they do?
used to be like you were comfortable. But I feel like if you have, God forbid, you had multiple children, for some of these, they were equating childcare to be double the cost of in-state college tuition here in Florida. The average cost for one infant.
For one infant. So you could send your kid to college twice for the cost of
1 year of childcare.
1 year of childcare.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
It is crazy, and it's unfortunate because for most people to make ends meet and just to have the basics and maybe a little bit extras,
You have to work.
Yeah, both people need to work. If you're a single parent,
You definitely have to
you
work.
definitely have to work. And what are you doing if your income is sort of matching the or taking such a large percentage of your for childcare? You're paying all that out. How do you do that?
Yeah.
How do people survive?
I don't know.
Statement from the daycare. That's for 4 months of care, 11,000.
Price of childcare is ridiculous and should absolutely be illegal. My daughter was two, not even a newborn. I was paying $1,900 a month, a freaking month. Plus, they had a fee of $100 every week for like meals and snacks and stuff. For clarity, I live in the DC metro area, and this was in alignment with every other childcare place close by.
Do y'all want to know what is freaking depressing? We got paid, and then I have to go spend $630 for 2 weeks on daycare. I can't wait till my kids become school aged and we don't have to spend that money.
We could go on forever about childcare and how expensive it is. It does.
I have got so much to say about this. It is unbelievable. Okay, so me and my partner both work full-time, 40 hours a week. I'm lucky I get to spend it with my baby. He does his thing, I do my thing, and we spend some time together too. If I want to send my child half the time to nursery, because, they've got to get used to other children as well, it would be £1,100 a month. And because we earn a certain amount of money each month, we don't get no help. We don't get fuck all. If I worked part-time and I was a single mum, I'd get every single bit of help. Or if I didn't work at all and I was a single mum, I'd get more. So basically what the system is telling me, be a single mum and don't work because you'll get everything. Sorry, I'm angry.
Since when are babysitters charging $100 a day?
$100 for 8 hours of care is $12.50 an hour. That's less than minimum wage where I'm from. You said where you're from, you expect to pay $50 a day for childcare. That's $6 an hour. You're expecting to pay $6 an hour for childcare in 2023? And you want to know when this happened? When it changed that you couldn't do that anymore? I was making $8 an hour in like 2005 in like a neighborhood hustle as a preteen, Like, what are you talking about?
Let me tell you, I'm about to quit and become a babysitter.
So do it then. Quit your corporate job, where you likely get benefits, paid time off, sick leave, and become a babysitter. Only problem is, you're probably not qualified. Do you have any education related to child development? Experience, classes, certifications, references? As a nanny, I would not accept a job under $35 an hour currently. I live in Portland, Oregon. It's a very expensive city. I even do like weekend childcare for one kid, date night, easy nights. $30 an hour is like the lowest I'll accept. Affordable childcare should absolutely be accessible to every family, but it would need to be subsidized by the state, because what you're asking is for your sitter to subsidize your career growth by paying them below a living wage.
Are childcare providers today asking too much? One person seems to think so. Let's watch.
What the fuck is up with today's generation of nannies?
And she goes on to talk about how she's trying to find some help with her child, and the requests that she's getting from these nanny websites, these job posting websites, are just out of this world. how they want really high rates, they want vacation days. If they're with the children all day, they would like meals provided, and how she just finds that completely unreasonable. Side note, she does give some more extreme examples, but in her comments, she also admitted that she was being a little bit dramatic, and she goes on to say that she wishes she could find a babysitter like how she was in the 90s, where you got paid $20 no matter how long you worked, and that was that. And my thing is, if you want the 16-year-old from down the street, that's who you should hire. And that's typically who a lot of people hire for like when you're going out on a date night. But if you're looking for consistent childcare who's going to be with your child for hours and hours at a time, and you're looking on these nannying websites and these job posting websites, these people are going to have experience. These are going to be their careers. And they're going to have standards. If you want the 16-year-old, hire the 16-year-old. But maybe you need to be more realistic as well.
How are people paying that? How much?
Hi, daycare employee here of 7 years, and most of my content on TikTok is about childcare. I currently live in North Carolina, but I moved from South Carolina. The parents in South Carolina were paying $180 a week, and I thought that was expensive. Then I moved here, and of course, cost of living, inflation. That was back in 2018 when I lived in South Carolina, so we can expect that things are going to be a little bit more expensive. But child, when I moved here to North Carolina and I got a job in childcare, when I found out the prices that these parents are paying weekly, that's the first question I asked, like, what do they do for work? And it got worse whenever I started actually working there and seeing how they live their daily life. Now, I won't out where I work at, but I will say that the prices for their daycare are on their website. So this is public knowledge. A parent of a full-time infant at my job is paying $360 a week for their child to attend my daycare. And let's do the math for fun. $360 a week, 4 weeks in a month, that is $1,440 times 12 months in a year, which is $17,280. A year, you're paying nearly $20,000 for your infant to attend daycare full time for the whole year? What do you do? And baby, that's for one child. Most of them have multiple children that go to the center. And here I am as a daycare employee, like, we barely make $20,000 a year. And the thing is, if they decide to keep their kids at a daycare for a day or two during the week, they're still paying that full-time price. So if you decide you don't want to be there, you're still going to pay. And these parents are just like, okay, we're going to be out for 2 days. It is what it is. Don't even bat an eye. They're on vacation. But that's what gets me. Because they're like on vacation 1 week, and then 6 months later, they're on another vacation. And then the cars that they drive are so nice. They're dressing to a T. Their kids are dressing to a T. They're gifting us things, teacher gifts. They got nannies. They're going to yoga in the morning time once they drop their kids off at daycare. And as a daycare employee, I'm not mad. But I do ask myself and my coworker every day, what the hell do these parents do? Where did they go to school? Did they just get lucky with their job? Like, I'm trying to figure it out because $20,000 a year, almost nearly $20,000 a year for one child. That's crazy that someone can afford that. On top of still living like a luxurious lifestyle or being able to afford like plenty other things. I just want to know, how are people doing it?
Okay, question for the class. How much do you guys pay for daycare where you live? I just got an email from daycare that the legislation in Canada has gone through in the province I live in as of April 1st, regardless of age, regardless of income, every child in a daycare center, non-private, but daycare center spot, $10 a day. I say this all while I'm halfway through my 18-month maternity leave here in Canada, and this is just going to be a huge blessing for my family.